Challenging conversations can require a lot of energy and effort. When we have challenging conversations as part of our job, we need to think about what will help us make the work more sustainable. Collective and self-care encourages us to think about what we need in order to feel understood and cared for. Now, let's talk about collective and self-care.
So when we're thinking about having challenging conversations, we're also reflecting on the energy that it can take to do this work, and it takes a lot of effort. So we're thinking about what kind of self-care practices can we adopt to make this work sustainable. And self-care, we like to acknowledge, was popularised by the Black Panther movement in the 1950s. The women of that movement adopted self-care as a way to be able to sustain themselves through an era where they were experiencing marginalisation.
Yeah, so self-care is not indulgent. It's actually about looking after yourself so that you're best placed to do work where you might be having difficult interactions. It's about knowing your limits, your boundaries, and also your temperament. We know that you bring your whole self to work, you're not a robot. So understanding how things going on in your life or how you're feeling might impact the work that you do, and being aware of that when you undertake certain work. It can also look like separating work from home life and taking extra care to look after yourself if you've had a particularly difficult interaction.
So we'd like to break it into 3 categories. So one category can be, what can you do for yourself?
Yeah, and that could look like maybe taking a walk or debriefing with a coworker if you've had a really difficult interaction. And if you keep seeing things come up, reporting them back to your manager or supervisor. It could also look like not taking lots of difficult calls on. If you work in a role where you're taking calls, maybe making sure that those are spread out across the team, and having activities that help you disconnect from work and look after yourself when the working day is over.
Yeah. And then the second category, we think about, what can my organisation do to support me? What would that look like?
Yeah, so as we mentioned, if there seems to be repeat issues or maybe repeat customers or clients coming into your work, that can be something that the whole of the organisation can band together to figure out how to deal with those situations. What else could it look like?
We often talk about reaching out to your manager or next in line, really thinking about what does your organisation have in place to support you, and leaning on those policies and procedures so that the boundaries of your work are very clear. And the last category we like to think of is, what can your community do for you, and what can you do for your community? Have you got any examples?
Yeah, so something that it can be really helpful. We know that after having a difficult interaction, the worst thing we can do is let it ruminate and keep going through our head. So the more opportunity we have to unpack and debrief with people around us, the better it is for our well-being. What else could it look like?
And it's really about connecting with people who you feel understood by, that you feel trusted with, that are going to be able to take on what you're debriefing, what the information you're sharing with is, and provide feedback that is beneficial, that makes you feel good, and that creates an opportunity for learning. So it's really thinking about, what kind of community supports do you have in place, and what kind of activities you might create to support your community in return. So it's really making all these aspects of collective and self-care sustainable.